Welcome to Spectrum News at 4. I am Rita Eno coming to you live from Uyo. Let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government defers 70% of 2025 capital budget to 2026. Chief of Defense Staff launches Operation Savannah Shield, warns terrorists in Kwara. Plus, Trump directs U.S. to prepare for release of files on aliens and UFO. Stay tuned for detail of these stories and even more to come in a moment. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned. We begin the news at 4 from the national scene where the federal government has said it will implement 30% of the 2025 capital budget before the end of November as part of measures to fast-track project execution and clear outstanding obligations. It also stated that the remaining 70% has been rolled over into the 2026 capital budget to ensure seamless implementation. The move follows a directive to ministries, departments and agencies to comply strictly with procurement rules in the execution and payment of capital projects under the extended 2025 budget cycle. In a statement by the Director of Press and Public Relations at the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, Bawa Mokwa, the government said MDAs had been instructed to align fully with the Public Procurement Act in implementing the 2025 and 2026 capital budgets. The Minister of State for Finance, Doris Uzoka Anite, gave the directive during a stakeholders meeting on the implementation of the extended 2025 capital budget held at the Federal Ministry of Finance in Abuja. Meanwhile, in a decisive move to strengthen oversight of Nigeria's fast-growing digital asset market, President Bola Tinubu established the Virtual Asset Regulatory Council (VARC) and designated the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) and the Nigerian Revenue Service (NRS) as the country's joint virtual asset regulatory authority (VARA), overseeing non-security virtual assets. The VARC, established through a presidential directive issued in August 2025, also recognizes the Securities and Exchange Commission as the regulator of virtual assets classified as securities. The new supervisory arrangement, unveiled as part of a broader policy framework, is designed to reshape how Nigerians interact with cryptocurrencies, stable coins, digital tokens, and other virtual assets, while enhancing security, transparency, and consumer protection in the sector. In the meantime, the federal government has expressed concern over the persistent circulation of substandard and falsified veterinary drugs, citing weak regulatory compliance and uncoordinated importation practices. The Minister of Livestock Development, Idi Mukhtar, raised the concern at a national stakeholders roundtable on the quality and regulation of veterinary medicines on Friday in Abuja. Mukhtar said inadequate oversight of local manufacturing and distribution channels had allowed poor quality products to enter the market, with livestock farmers often unknowingly purchasing ineffective drugs. According to him, this results in treatment failure, economic losses, and avoidable livestock death, undermining productivity in the sector. In a separate development, the Federal High Court in Abuja has adjourned the trial of Abubakar Malami, former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, and his son Abdulaziz until February 27th. The case filed by the Department of State Services (DSS) against Malami and son was adjourned by Justice Joyce Abdul Malik following a public holiday declared by the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike ahead of the area council's elections scheduled for tomorrow. Recall that the DSS had on February 3rd arraigned the ex-AGF and his son on a 5-count charge bordering on terrorism and illegal firearms possession. In the charge, Malami is also accused of refusing to prosecute suspected terrorism financiers whose case files were handed to him while he served as the AGF and Minister of Justice. On security matters, the Armed Forces of Nigeria has launched Operation Savannah Shield to dismantle terrorist networks and kidnapping syndicates in Kwara and neighboring Niger State. The Chief of Defense Staff Olufemi Oluyede operationalized the Joint Task Force at the 22 Brigade, Sobi Military Cantonment, Ilorin. Oluyede described the mission as a deliberate offensive to deny criminals freedom of action, warning that forested enclaves and ungoverned spaces hitherto exploited by terrorists will no longer serve as safe havens. He also said troops would conduct sustained clearance operations to protect lives, property and key agricultural zones. The defense chief also stressed enhanced inter-agency collaboration and urged community leaders and residents to provide credible intelligence, noting that security remains a shared responsibility. He further appointed the theater commander, Major General Yakubu Yahaya, to oversee operations in the joint area. Elsewhere, the Chief of Air Staff, CAS, Air Marshal Sunday Aneke, has charged personnel to deepen inter-agency cooperation, sustain high morale and uphold discipline, stressing that vigilance and professionalism remain critical to mission success. The Director of Public Relations and Information, Nigeria Air Force, Air Commodore Ehimen Ejodame, in a statement said the CAS stated that during his inspection of operational platforms, maintenance facilities and mission support infrastructure at 303 Composite Group, CG, Nigerian Air Force, NAF, Ilorin, he noted that air power gives the NAF speed, reach and precision, saying that when intelligently applied, it becomes a decisive force and multiplier in counter-terrorism operations. He also commended personnel for their professionalism and combat preparedness, adding that operational readiness is not a one-time achievement. It is a sustained culture. He noted that the platforms must be serviceable, intelligence must be actionable, and personnel must remain focused at all times, assuring the unit of continued headquarters support in logistics, training, and welfare to further enhance operational efficiency and responsiveness. And now to Africa, where Russian President Vladimir Putin has welcomed Madagascar's President Michael Randrianirina to Kremlin, pledging to deepen bilateral ties across multiple sectors and collaborate on international platforms. In his welcoming remarks, Putin highlighted many interesting directed interactions between the two nations, citing agriculture, geological exploration, energy medicine, healthcare and education as key areas of cooperation. He noted that Madagascan youth are already training in Russian higher education institutions, with many obtaining qualifications. On the foreign scene, President Donald Trump has said he will direct U.S. agencies, including the Defense Department, to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files on aliens and extraterrestrial life. Trump made the declaration in a post on Truth Social after he reportedly accused Barack Obama of revealing classified information when the former president said aliens are real on a podcast last week. And still on the foreign scene, the U.S. state of New Mexico will reopen a criminal probe into the ranch once owned by Jeffrey Epstein, following allegations that surfaced in Justice Department files on the convicted sex offender. State prosecutors said they would seek full access to unredacted Epstein files relating to the Zorro Ranch. held by federal investigators in Washington, D.C. They also pledged to work with Epstein Truth Commission set up this week in New Mexico. Reports say the state shelved its initial investigation into the ranch in 2019 upon request from federal prosecutors in New York. Epstein, who died in Manhattan jail in 2019, faced no charges in New Mexico. And still to come in the news. Moroccan court sentences 19 Senegalese fans for vandalism during AFCON 2025 finals. Stay tuned for detail of this story and even more stories to come in a moment. Many thanks for staying tuned and welcome back to Spectrum News within the hour. Going now to the business scene, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, has raised concerns that 50% of low-income countries are in or approaching debt distress, requiring urgent actions. Speaking at the ongoing technical group meeting of members of the Group of 25 Nations, G24, in Abuja, Edun also disclosed that debt servicing has become a major burden for many countries in the Global South. He noted that total annual debt servicing payments by debtor countries in the Global South was far above both inflows of overseas development assistance and foreign direct investments from the Global North. According to him, about 25% of emerging and developing economies, MDs, have lost access to international capital markets, making internally generated revenue more compelling than ever. And still in business, Nigerian currency Naira has strengthened sharply in recent weeks, reaching one of its strongest levels in nearly 2 years, even as rising foreign portfolio inflows increase the risk of investor profit taken later in the year. According to reports, the Naira has witnessed a steep appreciation in the official market, reaching one of the strongest levels in the past 2 years, which indicates improved liquidity conditions in the official foreign exchange window. However, the spread between the official and parallel markets persisted, with the parallel market initially trading at about a 5.7% premium before narrowing to roughly 3.2% following renewed FX interventions by the Central Bank of Nigeria. In health, the United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF, has urged the federal government to prioritize interventions critical to survival of children. The UN agency said child survival remains central to its mandate, adding that it will continue to support interventions tailored towards improving outcomes for Nigerian children. A health specialist at UNICEF Nigeria, Dr. Fatima Cheshi, made this known at the ongoing 4th National Oxygen Coordination meeting organized by the Nigerian government and other development partners in Abuja. According to a statement released by the United for Oxygen Coalition in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Health, Shashi noted that untreated low levels of oxygen in children's blood can lead to life-threatening complications. She explained that UNICEF strongly advocates pediatric inclusion, as many severe childhood conditions depend on timely oxygen therapy. And still in health, experts in oncology have expressed concern over the rising burden of breast and cervical cancers in Africa, noting that over 70% of women present for diagnosis at advanced stages. The oncologists from South Africa, Ghana, Kenya and Nigeria raised the concern during an MSD virtual media roundtable themed Women's Cancer Continuum across sub-Saharan Africa, turning insight into action. Speakers at the roundtable, Dr. Lasibikan of the Clinical Oncology Department, University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital, Enugu, said cancer remained a crisis in Africa due to infrastructural gaps hindering diagnosis, treatment and palliation. She identified diagnostic and therapeutic concerns, noting that the few radiotherapy centers were largely concentrated in teaching hospitals located in urban centers, leaving a huge population in rural and peri-urban areas without access to cancer care. And now to sports, where a Moroccan court has sentenced 19 football fans to up to a year in prison on charges of vandalism stemming from a chaotic African Cup of Nations final between Morocco and Senegal that saw supporters try to storm the field. After the hearing, the presiding judge ruled that the fans were guilty of more than half a dozen charges, including damaging sporting facilities and committing violence during a sporting event. 11 people were sentenced to 1 year in prison and handed $550 fine. 4 were sentenced to 6 months and given $218 fine, while the remaining 4 were sentenced to 3 months and $130 fines. And still in sports, Manchester United are through to the quarter-finals of the Women's Champions League in the first season in the competition after beating Atletico Madrid. Max Skinner's side navigated a two-legged playoff and won 5-0 on aggregate, having secured a 3-0 lead in Spain last week. With the win, United has set up a quarter-final meeting with Bayern Munich. United join English rivals Arsenal and Chelsea, who play each other in the last 8, with the first legs taking place on 24th to 25th of March 2026. On our entertainment news, Nigerian singer Simi has come under intense criticism on social media following the confession of a TikToker, Mirabel, who admitted that her widely circulated rape allegation was not true. The online debate began on February 18th after a video surfaced on TikTok in which Mirabel claimed she had been raped and injured with a blade inside her home. The video spread rapidly and triggered outrage, emotional reactions and heated conversations across the internet. While many Nigerians initially believed her story and condemned the alleged act, others expressed doubts, pointing to inconsistencies in the video. Some users accused her of clout chasing, further dividing public opinion. Amid the controversy, Simi took to X to speak against rape culture. She urged men to hold other men accountable and questioned why people felt triggered when rapists were called out. And that's all we have for you on the news at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News at 4. I am Rita Ino. Enjoy the rest of your day.